Is Conor McGregor fighting at the White House?
Happy Paddy's Day, America!
We're going to have a UFC fight. Think of this on the grounds of the White House. We have a lot of land there. We're going to build a little... We're not. Dana's going to do it. Dana's great, one of a kind. We're going to have a UFC fight, championship fight, full fight, like 20, 25,000 people.
Listen, if they've got the land, they've got the money, they've got the know-how, they've got the resources, they've got the fighters. If anyone can do it, it's Donald Trump and Dana White.
So this isn't just some idea that he may have had. He's saying that that's what Dana White's going to get done. So you know what, Dana White? You heard the boss. Get to work, okay? You best get back to work now. No more gambling with the Nelk boys. No more boxing promo this. No more power slap that. You've got a White House event to plan for in 2026. Get to work, Dana White.
Recently, Dana White and the UFC confirmed that they're putting a fight card together at the White House on July 4th of 2026. And although Conor hasn't fought in a really long time, and it seems like at this point he's most likely retired, Conor has went out on Twitter and has talked about and expressed interest in potentially being on this card. So a question that a lot of fans are wondering is, could we potentially see a return of Conor McGregor? But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm JuicyMMA. I make opinionated MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. Also be sure to hit that join button for exclusive channel perks. But anyways, let's get into it. The career of Conor McGregor has been a very interesting one, and it's really been two separate careers baked into one. Originally, when Conor signed with the company, he was on fire. He was getting TKO victories very quickly regardless of who he was going up against. He was putting on very fun and impressive performances, quickly moving up the ranks, while also at the same time building his star power based on his personality alongside with, of course, his fighting style and his success. What Conor did early on in his UFC career was something remarkable. He was able to predict exactly how his fights would go, then he would go into the fight and do exactly what he said, giving him the nickname Mystic Mac. And due to that, and due to some other factors, Conor McGregor really started to build his stardom, becoming clearly the biggest star in the UFC at that point, and really the biggest star in the UFC as a whole. And all of that was culminated in his fight versus Eddie Alvarez, as in that fight, Conor McGregor absolutely dominated Eddie, finding a TKO finish, and that victory made Conor the double champ of the UFC.
That looks good. That looks good, God bless.
But unfortunately, after all the success that Conor had, becoming the double champ and beating all those legends along the way, his next chapter wasn't necessarily a good one, as we just started to see a guy whose priorities weren't necessarily MMA anymore. As Conor decided to box Floyd Mayweather, a huge money fight for him after becoming the double champ. After that fight, he ended up losing to Khabib Nurmagomedov, then he ended up losing to Dustin Poirier two separate times with a win over Cowboy Cerrone mixed into that. But at the end of the day, ever since becoming the double champ, we saw a couple things from Conor. He was starting to lose a lot more, as he was 1-3 ever since that title fight, while also at the same time we saw a much more inactive Conor McGregor. When Conor was on his rise, we would see Conor a bunch of times throughout the year, and that's really how he built his stardom. But ever since becoming the double champ and beating Eddie Alvarez, it seemed like we only saw Conor McGregor once or twice every few years. And due to that inactivity, we really saw an effect of that within Conor McGregor's performances. And at this point, Conor McGregor hasn't fought since he lost to Dustin Poirier the second time. And a lot of fans, including myself, think he's most likely retired at this point. But as I touched upon before, there has been some rumors of the UFC potentially putting a fight card together on the White House lawn. And due to the historic nature of this event, a lot of guys are getting excited and a lot of guys want to be a part of this fight card, with Conor McGregor being one of those guys, as he did go onto Twitter recently talking about in length of how much he would potentially want to be on that fight card, with Dana White even himself approving the potential bout. So a question that some of you may be wondering at this point is, do I think Conor will actually fight on this potential White House card? Well, in my opinion, I think it's a little bit of a mixed bag, because on one hand, this is a very historic event that I think a lot of guys would want to fight on this potential card, and I do think a guy like Conor McGregor would be very interested in fighting on an historic card like this. But on the other hand, we have seen Conor McGregor talk about a potential return a bunch of different times at this point, and it just seems like it never materializes. So in my opinion, if I had to give my official prediction on whether or not Conor McGregor would return to the UFC for this White House card, I probably would say no at this point. At this point, I just need to see it to believe it. I do think there is a real chance that Conor McGregor may have interest on this card, and maybe he would be able to headline this card, or maybe he'll be able to be on this card. But at the end of the day, I just think at this point, Conor McGregor is a little bit bipolar, because on one hand, Conor will say he's super interested in a fight, and then on the next hand, he would have zero interest in a fight, or wouldn't be training enough, or wouldn't be ready to make a certain weight, or wouldn't be ready to get into fight camp. So there's always so many variables when talking about Conor McGregor at this point. As I touched upon before, the Conor we see now is not the Conor we saw on his come up. The Conor we saw on his come up was a very stable guy. He was a guy that was consistently training. He was a guy whose entire life was based around MMA, training every day, making sure his health was good, making sure his routine was set, and there were just so many things that he was doing. Of course, also never missing weight, but at this point, it seems like all that routine and all of that discipline that Conor McGregor had originally on his come up at this point is all but gone. So I do think there is a chance that we could see Conor McGregor on this card, but at the same time, I think even if Conor does accept a potential fight against Chandler or a potential fight against somebody else for this card, it is still going to be a wait and see, and we won't know if Conor would officially be on this card until the card actually happens. I think at this point in Conor's career, we're kind of at that point. Now, after the announcement of the potential White House card, there was another guy outside of Conor McGregor that has shown interest, and that guy is Jon Jones. Now, the Jon Jones scenario is definitely an interesting one. Jon just retired about a week ago, or about 2 weeks ago, and already at this point, he said he's already back in the testing pool, and he has interest in potentially fighting on that White House card. Now, for Conor McGregor, I talked about how I didn't think it's super likely that he will be on this card, even if he does have interest, but for Jon Jones, I feel a little bit differently. For Jon, I think at this point, he just did not want to fight Tom Aspinall. Maybe he thought it was too tough of a challenge, maybe he thought he wouldn't make enough money, maybe he thought Tom Aspinall wasn't a big enough name, but for whatever the reason was, it was pretty clear he did not want to fight Tom Aspinall. But if the UFC did put together a card at the White House and Jon Jones was able to fight somebody else, maybe like an Alex Pereira that he's shown interest in the past, or even a Francis Ngannou, which is another guy he has shown interest in the past, maybe Jon Jones would be willing to fight one of those guys. And there's even a chance that Jon may even be willing to fight Tom Aspinall, because if Jon comes back next year in July, at that point Tom would probably have at least 2 title defenses under his belt at that point, assuming he wins his fights. And if that were to be the case, Tom would be a bigger name at that point. Tom would be a legitimate champion at that point with a couple of title defenses under his belt, and maybe that would be more appealing for Jon Jones. Now, I don't want to say Conor McGregor or Jon Jones are certainly going to fight on this White House card, or this potential White House card. We don't even know if it's going to happen yet at this point. But because Jon Jones is not currently a champion, I think out of these two guys, Jon would be a lot more likely to fight on this card as opposed to Conor McGregor. Just because Jon would have a lot of options at this point, as he's not currently the champion. He can fight Francis Ngannou, he can fight Alex Pereira, or even he can fight Tom Aspinall if he wanted to at that point, but he's not forced to fight Tom Aspinall, I guess. And I think that's the difference with Jon Jones not being the champion. But of course, with all that being said, there still are a lot of questions. We don't know if this card's even going to get put together. We don't know if Jon Jones or Conor McGregor are even going to be on this card. But one thing that I will say is it is going to be very interesting to see how the stars respond to this potential card, how the UFC decides to put things together. If this does even end up happening, it is a very historic thing and something that's never been done before. So I will say I am very interested to see what does end up happening at the end of the day. And I do think if the UFC is able to put the card together here, if they are able to have Conor McGregor or Jon Jones, or maybe even both in the theoretical world, I think it would be a very good thing for the sport and a very good thing for the UFC. But as I always say, I guess only time will tell what does end up happening. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Conor McGregor or Jon Jones would fight on a potential White House card, or do you not think so? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out, guys.